Is it really possible to repair your own audio leads with tools that you've got lying around the garage? Well, stick around and you'll find out. Now remember, at any point you can fast forward to the point of interest by clicking on the time code in the description below. Now let's get into it. Now these are the tools that you need to be able to repair the audio lead. One, you'll need some sort of ply out of the garage so that you don't damage the top of your kitchen table or wherever you're working. You need an economical soldering iron, like I prefer to use a workstation, but for the sake of this exercise, there's a lot of homes around the world that have got one of these in the garage, plus some resin core solder. You also need some sort of cutting pliers. Now the reason why I've chosen these is they're fairly common, but they do have some good cutting surfaces there, and you could use side cutters, which would be much better, but not every garage has got side cutters. And a simple utility knife that you might even find in your office. So it's a sharp tool for doing your cutting. This is just to cut the lead, and there's your soldering kit. Now of course you need your part that you're going to be replacing, and in this case I'll just pick up this lead. This is just a very basic guitar lead, and it's actually had the plug stood on and broken, so I want to repair that and put this new plug on the end of this. Something that's a lot of help is you need some sort of helping hands, because we've only got two hands. We're holding the soldering iron in one, we'll be holding the solder in another, and the plug, if you've ever done this or tried to do it before, it'll roll around the table and you won't be able to work on it very easily. If you're in the field, you might have even found yourself putting a tool on top to stop it moving. Don't hold this because it heats up. I have actually done that and you can burn yourself. But I've made up a little bracket here. This is just a piece of ply, and it's got a female 6.5mm socket on that little bracket, and it holds the plug really nicely. So it's nice and firm. It's not going to go anywhere when you're working on it. It's much easier. You can purchase these sorts of things. They're called helping hands. Some of them have got magnifying glasses on. I've got 2 or 3 that I use, but by far this is the simplest, and if you're going to be doing a number of repairs, it makes it nice and easy to get the job done. So there's your kit. Very simple parts, and they're all things that you most likely have got lying in your garage. Just some safety considerations. Be sure to set up your workstation where there's ventilation. Extended exposure to the fumes is bad to your health. Now also, you're dealing with a hot soldering iron and you can burn yourself, so be very careful. And it's always a good idea to wear safety glasses or some eye protection. Now to begin with, I need to prepare the lead to make sure it's ready, and that means cutting off the old plug that's been damaged, and it's always a good idea just to cut back from the end of the lead, because if you've had damage on the plug like this, there is a good chance that it could have even stretched or broken some of the wire inside this cable. So whenever I cut off a plug like that, of course if I've got enough cable, I'll cut it off a little bit further away from the plug. So let's cut that off. Use our basic cutting pliers, and you've got your cutting tool there. Now again, there's your plug that we're going to be cutting off. Not there, but just cut it back a little bit further. So now we can throw that away. The next thing, we need to prepare the lead. Now inside this lead you've got 2 conductors. One is a shield around the outside. You've got the outside plastic, of course, but then you've got a shield over the top of an insulated wire in the centre. So let's have a look at that. Well, and it's a good idea to just work out how much you need to remove by lining it up with the plug. The outside plastic can be cut with your utility knife. It's just simply a matter of rolling the knife over the top of the plastic. You've got to be careful that you don't go all the way through. Put a little cut in it there, and as you can see, you just bend the plastic and it should break. That way you don't remove any of the, don't cut any of the fibres. Now separate the wires and twist the outer braid together. Now you have to remove the outer covering off the little conductor in the centre. So let's take it off in the same manner. So just roll that over, being careful not to go all the way through and cut the wires inside. Once you've made a mark, bend the wire, the plastic should break. Of course, if it's a problem and you cut through too many, you can always shorten the cable and have another go at it. So we twist the braid together, the outside shield and also the inner conductor. Twist those together, and now we're ready for the next step, and that's to tin the wire. So I'm going to set my plug up in some sort of holder. You could do the same. We need to put some solder on each of these terminations here, as well as the wires. They call that tinning the wire, and then we'll be able to cut them to length. So let's do that now. Set up our wire, and I'm just going to a little bit of solder on the end there. And I'm going to shorten this shield so that it's not so long. And don't forget, you've also got to tin the inner conductor as well. So it's ready. There we have it. Now those two wires are tinned, ready to solder onto the terminals. We need to tin the terminals as well. So put the soldering iron onto the metal, heat the metal up, then place the solder onto the metal, and we've got a nice connection there now. I might need a little bit more on here. Now the next step is to match up the lengths of these conductors so it nicely matches where we're going to have it on the job. So this shield can actually be cut off a little bit. If you're using side cutters, it's a little bit easier. Not everyone has side cutters, so we need to put the outside cover of the plug over the lead first before we solder that on. Because once that's soldered on, you're not going to be able to get this part of the plug on. So, checking that we've got the outside cover of the plug on the lead, now we can solder it in place. Just a matter of reheating the join, and they will weld together. And just watch you don't burn your fingers on the hot metal. It's a good idea to bend the wire into the right shape before you place it on. There we have it, just hold it gently on there. Just reheat that join. Take that out of there, push that aside. As you can see, you've got the shield already soldered onto there, and you've got the inner conductor soldered onto the tip. That particular terminal connects to the tip of the plug, and this terminal here connects to the shield, or the sleeve, they call it the sleeve. We can now clamp the back of the plug, little clamp onto the outside. And that will act as a restraint in case the lead gets tripped over, and it doesn't put the pressure on the terminations then. And once you've got it to that point, you can put the outside cover on, checked your solder joins. You've got your plug all ready to go. The next thing to do now is to test it to make sure that it tests okay with the multimeter, that you haven't got any problems and there's no shorting. I don't claim to be an authority on soldering techniques, so you might have some great tips on how to solder more effectively. Or you've got some questions, share them on Twitter or type them in the comments section. If you want a reminder when we upload our next video, make sure that you subscribe. Subscribe to our channel or follow us on Instagram or your own favourite social media platform. I'll be filming reviews of audio equipment along with easy to understand explanations of how to set up and use installation tools and equipment. So follow our channel, work safely and never be satisfied with poor audio.